My name is Judah Coker. I am a full-time community organizer with the San Diego Organizing Project. So I work primarily in the cities of Oceanside and Encinitas, and I've been with the organization for about 3 years. I learned about SDOP originally when I was in college, so I think it was maybe like 2019. I was a poli-sci major and was just knew that I wanted to do something in my community that involved social justice advocacy and local political work, and so I was really excited when I discovered San Diego Organizing Project. I grew up in a religious environment. Both of my parents are pastors, and I think that I was really instilled in the belief that Christianity and our specific faith was rooted in the idea of the belief that Christianity was about fighting against systems of oppression and serving people. And so that was kind of my unique perspective of faith growing up. And so I was really inspired to see that there was local work happening in San Diego that was rooted in faith communities wanting to do exactly that and put their faith into action. And so I learned about SDOP in college. I kind of was just really excited to hear about the work that was happening. I was really new to grassroots organizing, and so I just was like, what can I do? How can I offer my time? Put me wherever you need me. And so I served as a volunteer/leader with them for a couple summers, and then when I graduated, I knew I wanted to do even more and kind of explore organizing as a job and a career. And I was lucky enough to be hired when I graduated. So I've been full-time now for about 2 years, but had been doing work with them in a volunteer way for a little bit longer than that. The work that my teams primarily do and have been involved in the past couple of years have been mainly around housing, trying to address the housing crisis in San Diego, and public safety. And so when we talk about public safety, we primarily mean systems of policing and how they operate in our communities, especially communities of color, our disabled community, LGBTQ community, etc. We're working currently to try and strengthen the oversight board so that it actually has enough power to hold officers accountable when they violate policy. And then in the housing side of things, we're really focused on efforts that could make it so City Council is not only creating more housing in the city that's actually affordable, that is not just making developers rich, but that is creating enough housing stock that people can afford so that they're staying in Oceanside, that we're not contributing to the homelessness crisis, and also that's protecting tenants so that they're not being unfairly evicted and that their rents aren't being raised, because we know displacement is a really big issue. Those two issues, I think, are really significant to me for that reason, and we've done a lot of work on them. But I think the biggest learning I've had in this work has been that everything is really inextricably connected at the end of the day. And I think a big example of that would be like San Diego County, for example, has a $7.2 billion annual budget, right? And we know that currently the majority of those funds are going to things like police and prisons. And on the reverse side, we know that the housing crisis is the result of years of us not putting those funds towards more housing that could actually be accessible and be affordable to the majority of our communities. And so I think that's a good example of how when we talk about housing, we talk about policing, when we talk about other issues, it's really all connected, and it comes down to what our decision makers are prioritizing. And I'm a really firm believer that we have the knowledge and the resources and the capacity to prioritize things in society that we know benefit our communities. So in that way, I think for me, the biggest issue is just getting the political will needed to actually dedicate those resources and create policy that we know creates a better standard of living for our communities, and that it's really all connected in that way. So I think I would define power as the ability to make change happen or to influence things. I think it can be applied on a lot of different levels, right? So we can think about the power that politicians have, right? They have the power to create policy and to implement these things we're talking about. We can think about individual power, your power as a person to share your story, to influence others, to encourage others. And And then in organizing, I think about it as like community power, right? Our theory is that with enough grassroots building, with enough relationship building and coalition building, that we can have power as a community to not only advocate for change, but to actually see it happen and to influence those decision makers to do the things that we know will benefit our communities. Something we see a lot when we talk about power is this idea that it's almost like a bad thing. Like it's a bad word. It's like you shouldn't strive to want to be powerful. You shouldn't strive to want power, that it's inherently corrupt, that only a certain sector of society can access it. And I can understand that sentiment. And I think that in college, I always viewed power as like an elite type of thing, you know? And I think it's a really radical concept that I picked up through organizing, and that I try and, you know, as an organizer, my job is to inspire others to think about it this way too, but that power is something that we can all have, and that it's something we should want, you know? And it doesn't have to be a corrupt thing, it doesn't have to be a bad thing, that we should view ourselves as powerful people, and that community power and the power to take back control over the decisions being made that affect us is something we should strive for. I think like in younger generations especially, there's kind of this like prevailing sense of hopelessness when it comes to like our world's future, you know? Like people, there's this sentiment all the time of like the world's dying, everything's so expensive, politicians don't care about us, like there's no point, you know? And I get it, and I don't want to make it seem like the things that we're facing aren't really scary, and that it can be really overwhelming, and I think there's like a little bit of humor in it as well. But I think that it's really nice to, again, like back to the community aspect, to be around people who are like, no, we're not giving up yet. I think we know that there are solutions, and there's like like I said, there's the solutions and there's the resources, and they're there, and it just requires the political will. And so I really encourage people to find that hope, right? And to get involved where they can, you know?